call to order the meeting of Mayor and Council. Thank you all so much for being here. If you will rise for the invocation by Councilman Holland.
Let us pray. Oh, Father God, we pray for this gathering that's held here tonight. Pray that you bless everyone that's here in attendance. We pray that you bless up the wisdom, knowledge, and common sense, help you make wise and smart decisions, and that when we need help, you put the right people and resources in place to be there to help us and not hinder us. We pray everyone have a blessed and safe and joyous Christmas holiday, and we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Please stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be seated. Okay, for the first time in a long time, we will not be having an executive session tonight. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda?
No, sir, there are not.
Okay, you've all received the minutes from our last meeting. If there are no questions or comments, I'll accept the motion to receive the minutes.
So moved.
Motion from Councilman McCoy. Is there a second?
Councilman Holland, I second that motion.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Okay, public comment. Ashley, do we have any public comment tonight?
We do. We have two listed for public comment. The first, neither one of them are present, but they ask that their comments be read into the record. The first is
Ashley, may I ask you to come up to the mic, please? Sorry.
Let's try it again.
Yep.
Good evening. So we have two public comments. Neither one are present, but they ask that the comments be read into the record. The first is from Dan Cannon. Address is 411 Nylon Boulevard. Most of you likely remember last April 16th, 2022 in Seaford, when only 12%, or 600 of the 5,000 eligible voters turned out in the municipal elections. What a shame. While there may be many possible reasons for a poor turnout, consider this. What does this past April 16 of 2022 and April 19th of 2025 have in common? Both were and are scheduled Seaford election days, and both did and will occur in the middle of a 3-day Easter holiday. Now, what do April 19th of 2025 and April 15th of 2028 have in common? Both are scheduled Seaford election days and will occur in the middle of the 3-day Easter holiday. Any guesses as to what April 19th of 2025, April 15th of 2028, and April 20th of 2030 have in common? You bet your life, all are scheduled Seaford election days, and all did and will occur in the middle of the 3-day Easter holiday. Seaford has scheduled elections for 3 out of the 6 years in the last part of the 2020s during the weekend of perhaps the most important of all Christian holidays, marking the Friday crucifixion to the Sunday resurrection of Jesus of Nazareth. What are the negative effects of scheduling a municipal election during the Easter holiday on voter turnout in a largely conservative and majority Christian community? They are likely impossible to quantify empirically. However, though personally not particularly religious, I am a strong believer that other people's beliefs, traditions, and practices deserve respect. With this in mind, scheduling municipal elections during Easter holidays is wholly inappropriate, especially with a potentially negative impact on voter turnout. As elected representatives of the people of Seaford, Mayor and City Council should show respect, at least in part, for our community's beliefs by permanently moving the scheduled municipal elections to November's general election date to eliminate further conflict with Easter and/or other important holidays. For this reason and others, I continue to strongly encourage all citizens of Seaford to bring their positive and/or negative opinions, observations, and recommendations into the form of public comment for the betterment of our city. And I apologize.
You're fine on the time. I'm watching you.
All right, I appreciate it.
Got the shot clock out.
Next comment is from Representative Danny Short. I am responding to a recently published letter in which Dan Cannon took issue with me for not supporting his position that municipal elections should be held as part of our general election. Mr. Cannon contrasts that 12% voter turnout during the City of Seaford's elections last April with 69% voter participation in the 2020 general election, maintaining that having more citizens casting votes would lead to a better outcome. It is well-intentioned but flawed argument. Mr. Cannon's suggestion is not new, innovative, or insightful. It has been proposed and rejected many times, both for school board and municipal elections. The Sussex County Association of Towns, the Delaware League of Local Governments, and the Delaware School Board Association all oppose it. Their rationale is that moving local, nonpartisan contests to the general election will politicize these races. Additionally, they believe the elections to fill these important posts will be lost amidst the chaotic noise of statewide and national campaigns. There was a 69% turnout in 2020 general elections, but those people were driven to the polls by the high-profile presidential and gubernatorial races, not their interests in anything down the ballot. Consider the recently concluded general election. Without the big-ticket races, the off-year elections garnered less than 43% turnout. A multitude of Delaware political candidates, myself included, collectively spent millions of dollars on every conceivable way to promote themselves and motivate people to cast ballots in this election cycle. Add to that the uncounted thousands of man-hours by vast numbers of volunteers calling, texting, and speaking directly to citizens, and the additional coverage of media outlets. The result was that more than 57% of eligible voters still chose not to participate. The flaw in Mr. Cannon's thinking is that higher voter turnout equates to more engaged voters. If municipal races were on the general election ballot, more people would likely cast votes for local candidates. But how many of these voters would know anything about the people for whom they were voting? Municipal campaigns are run on the thinnest budgets with little to no volunteer help. Tossing these races into the pandemonium of the general election will do nothing but guarantee that they get lost in the shuffle. How does having more people casting votes on unfamiliar candidates result in better outcomes? Selecting office holders by random chance is not a solution. Mr. Cannon and I agree that we would both like to see more voter participation in municipal elections. The difference is, I believe, that such participation, if you don't mind if I can finish. Sure. Thank you. The difference is, I believe that such participation should be in the form of engaged citizens making informed choices. Perhaps the answer is not moving the date of municipal and school board elections, but better state promotion of these races, giving these nonpartisan contests the attention they deserve.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments tonight? No.
Mr. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Paul Jones. I live at 335 North Pine Street. I didn't know if you, as a group or individually, were aware of some of the issues that we're suffering from on North Pine Street. High crime, garbage everywhere, lack of action from anyone we've spoken to, specifically 339 North Pine Street, where there is an ongoing gambling operation that goes on almost nightly, right out in the open, with some nights 25 to 40 cars parked on the street with people going back and forth, drinking in public, urinating in public, making loud noise late at night. And I believe it's, what's the house 2 doors up from there? Is it 335 or is it 329 on Pine Street? Do you remember? Beside me? Yeah, next to you. 329. No, 332. Okay, well, I'm 335. It's my next door neighbor's house. It's owned by Mr. Bombat. Everybody familiar with him? Gary? Yeah, there's about a million people living there 2030. It's been condemned. There's garbage everywhere. There's people coming, going day and night, loud noise all the time. We have had no help from the city. We've complained to code violations, the police. We've walked down here and talked to people in City Hall. Nothing's being done.
Can you leave your contact information
Sure.
with Ashley in the back, and I will follow up with you tomorrow?
I don't know if I can talk to you tomorrow. I'm at work, pretty busy, but at some point, yeah.
Yeah,
I'll leave my email address. You can
Please.
text- We can text.
That would be great. We'd love
Okay,
to
but
follow
yeah,
up on
it's
this.
really been, I mean, I've lived there for 5 years now,
Okay,
and my neighbor has lived there for longer than that, and this has been a problem the entire time I've lived there.
I will follow up.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any other public comments?
How you guys doing?
How you doing?
My name is Paul Sell. I live 2 doors down from Paul, 327 Pine Street, and I agree with him on a lot of his concerns. Since I was 16 years old, I felt like I've been a part of Seaford. That's where I came to hang out. That's where I spent more than half of my life. I worked at DuPont for 23 years. And I've seen Seaford go downhill. And it's a shame because I saw the same thing happen in my hometown, Federalsburg, Maryland. Federalsburg's getting their stuff together. They're getting it back. I've been in contact with the mayor, city council over there, the police chief, and they've got their head on the right way and they're going the right direction. I want to see this city go back to what it used to be. And I'm willing to help out any way I can. If any of you guys want to make personal contact with me, speak with me and let me tell you my concerns and what I think can be done. Be glad to talk with you, all of you.
Okay.
This is the first time I've been here. The reason why I'm here is because things have gotten that bad.
Well, this is what public comment is meant to be, and I appreciate you taking the time and effort. I know it's a night meeting, and that's difficult to come out sometimes, but you always can reach us, but really appreciate you coming and voicing your concerns. Again, if you'll leave your, I will follow up with you, and we'll get together and chat. Would love to help solve that issue.
I'd like to give you some of my ideas and make solutions to get there.
Please, be
So,
great.
and I'd rather do it on a one-to-one basis rather than a public
Understood.
comment where I can,
I
get things
understand.
stirred up.
Yep, I understand. And I can assure you that all of the folks that are at this table would agree. They want to
Yeah.
get it, they want to get it fixed.
So
So we,
if we get stirred up one-to-one, it's a lot better than get stirred up.
yeah, that's right. Amen. Thank you again for
allowing
coming.
me to speak.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Is there anybody else here for public comment? Okay, with that, we're going to go ahead and close our regular hearing and open up our public hearing, and I am going to call up our building official, Mike Bailey.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Just one item on tonight's agenda for the public hearing. That's for D.R. Horton, and they're requesting a subdivision of 164 lots and a preliminary site plan review for the construction of single-family homes to be built on lots. It's located on Old Furnace Road, tax map and parcel 331-4.00-37.00. So this is the property out there. It's way out there on Old Furnace Road. Kind of enlarged the zoning map there and circled it in red. It's the pink square there. It's a large parcel there, zoned R2 residential. Currently, it's mixed farmland and wooded area. We did receive this site plan for the project. Current owner is Mr. J. Dolby, and they're proposing 164 residential lots. The zoning is R2 medium density residential. Those lots do meet the area and bulk requirements for that zone, minimum 4,500 square feet and a 35-foot lot width. They're proposing connections to the city electric, water, and sewer. The sewer will be connected via a lift station on the property. And they will require additional approvals from DelDOT, State Fire Marshal, Sussex Conservation, and the city engineer for the water and sewer and electric extensions. This map shows the proposed route of the utilities across the Dolby farm. There from the bottom, there's a red and blue line going up the middle there. And that aligns with a proposed planned subdivision of that property as well, with the left-hand side being commercial and the remainder there being a residential project. It'll be a-
You can
yeah.
have more time, Mike.
It'll align with a road that's proposed in that area. Like I said, that all is up for review from the city engineer and staff for those utility extensions. I just wanted to include that and show you the plan. Is there any questions I can answer, or there's some gentlemen here from D.R. Horton and their engineer?
Their current development there behind Nanacoke's, Muirfield, I'm sorry. Lot size, is that comparable to this site? Is that, just so I have in my mind? what that-
Roughly, it's an
Okay.
R2 development as well, so yeah,
Okay.
they're roughly the same size.
Okay, just wanted to have
I
visualization.
believe, talking to them, it's going to be a similar house plan package, yep.
Okay. Are there any questions from council? Councilman Henderson?
Is this current plan on the same parcel as the previous plan?
It is, but there's
Mr.
a,
Dolby put forward?
it is. Mr. Dolby had that plan he was going through on his own. He's since working with D.R. Horton to develop it, and they've made some major changes to that plan.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Are there any questions from the public? Okay. All right, we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing and reopen our regular meeting at 7:16.
So this is the findings of facts for tonight's public hearing. The project is a D.R. Horton preliminary site plan. The owner is Mr. J. Dolby. Property location is Old Furnace Road, and that's tax map and parcel 331-4.00-37.00. The zoning is R2 medium density residential. They're proposing 164 residential lots, and the proposed lots do meet the area and bulk requirements, a minimum of 4,500 square feet and a minimum 35-foot lot width. They're proposing connections to the city electric, water, and sewer with a lift station. And they require approvals from DelDOT, State Fire Marshal, Sussex Conservation, the city engineer for the water and sewer extensions. Planning and zoning did make a favorable recommendation for approval on December 1st.
Okay, I'll accept the motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make the motion to approve the request of D.R. Horton for the subdivision of 164 lots and a preliminary site plan review for the construction of single-family homes to be built on lots located on Old Furnace Road, tax map and parcel 331-4.00-37.00 as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Councilman McCoy seconds. Are there any questions on the motion? If not, we're going to do a roll call vote. Councilman Holland?
Yes, based on findings of facts.
Councilman McCoy?
Yes, based on findings and facts.
Councilman King?
Yes, based on findings of facts.
Councilman Henderson?
Yes, based on findings of facts.
And Councilman Santos?
Yes, based on findings of facts.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Mike.
Congratulations. Moving forward. All right, under new business. Tonight, we get to update the public on something that we have been working on for months and months and years, and that was that the ownership of the Nylon Capital Shopping Center has changed hands and ownership. The governor was, sort of dropped the mic on that. It was, the governor was down today, if you have not heard or were not there, to celebrate this. This was a city in partnership with the state and 9th Street Development Corporation to get this property purchased, and it will be redeveloped. The developer will be here at the next city council meeting, which will be the second Tuesday in January. At that time, he'll present plans on what will be coming. Things will be moving rather quickly on that site. He's in the process of contacting each individual leaseholder there and working through the process. But as we have been focused on revitalizing and economic development in this city, this was a piece that anybody who's ever worked for the city or ran for public office has been asked, what are you going to do? And this is one that can be checked off the list that it is going to be done. And it was a big day. It was exciting. There were a lot of smiling faces out there today. The governor was almost giddy. And we have taken on a lot of hard things at this city, and this certainly took a lot of money of our taxpayer and ratepayers' money to get this done. But I think the investment and the return on that investment is going to be incredible. And this one has a very happy ending for our community. So we don't have to vote on it. It's a done deal, so it's exciting. But we do want to share with the community that the vote at our last meeting of $3.1 million went towards that project, and we're excited. But expect to see updates coming pretty rapidly, and expect to see the developer here at our next city council meeting in January. Okay, any questions?
A meeting over.
Yeah, I tell you. All right, next we're going to call up Mr. Sims to walk us through the PCAC.
You got a tough act to follow.
I'm about to say, really.
Is that, I know, right? I always get to be the bearer of the bad news. I get it. Yeah, so the last time I was here, we talked about water and sewer, so this time we're going to talk about electric. In September, we had to do a middle-of-the-year increase to the PCAC. It was pretty significant. It was 9 mils increased, about $9 for a 1,000 kilowatt-hour residential customer. And that was to keep the Indian River plant running for the next essentially 7 years until that plant is going to be allowed to retire. So at that time, DMEC said that they were anticipating anything between a 0 and a 6% increase for 2023, just following a couple months after that. So even they weren't sure exactly what it was going to be at that time. They approved a rate that is essentially a 3% increase, so it's right in the middle there. So looking at page 1, it's going from 81.82 up to 84.17. So that increase is about $276,000 a year. And that's not quite 3% of your power supply cost. So technically in the ordinance, you could keep the PCAC where it's at, but we would undercollect by that $276,000. So that would be coming out of the budget. And you would ultimately have to collect that in a future year. So that just means that the increase in 2024 would be just that much larger. So, following the normal pattern, we always relevelize according to the change in the DMEC rate every January 1. And so the increase in the PCA is going from 3 mils up to 5.3 mils. So that's a $2.32 increase on a 1,000 kilowatt-hour residential customer. And so that impact on each rate class can be seen on page 3. So the residentials, it's about a 1.5% increase, so it's going to be very small. And it ranges up to the large general service customers is going to see closer to a 2% increase, and that's just because their rates are lower as you use more kilowatt hours on a per kilowatt hour basis. So how that compares, like how our rates have changed over time, the chart on page 4 shows all the way back to 2011, which is essentially the highest the rates got after the 2008 financial crisis. And so you can see with this increase today, we're going to be 0.2% higher than what we were at the highest point. So we're essentially just back, we're rewinding the clock almost 10 years. And that does include increases other than just power supply cost. So that does include we had increases for debt service collection for that $9 million bond, and some increases for operating expenses as well. So it may, granted, a 15% increase over the last 3 years is significant, but I do want to point out that the Delaware Electric Co-op in particular, they just increased their PCAC by 23 mils, which is $23 for a 1,000 kilowatt hour customer. So even if we add in the 9 that we just did several months ago, plus this $2.35, we're still essentially half as much of an increase as what DEC saw in their rates. So, DMEC has done a pretty good job of effectively managing our costs so that we haven't had to need a significant increase relative to what we're seeing in the rest of the industry. And the last 2 pages show how our rates compare. It's worth pointing out with Delmarva Power, They've had significant increases as well, and so our rates now are extremely comparable, especially if you're an 1,000 kilowatt hour customer, you're essentially paying exactly the same as what you would in DP&L. And then with DEC, on the last page, we're just about 5% away from them. They're still less than us, but we've got extremely competitive rates now.
All right, are there any questions in regards to this adjustment to the PCAC? If not, I'll accept the motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make the motion to approve the revision to the fee and rate schedule.
Next,
Change.
number 2. New business number 2.
Sorry, there, sorry, I got confused there. Yeah, motion to revise the power cost adjustment clause, PCAC, to 0.00532 kilowatt hours to address the increase in wholesale electric rates as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Councilman Holland, Mr. Mayor, I second that motion.
Okay, are there any questions on the motion? Yes, sir.
Just a little slow on the draw.
Me too.
Could you, do you have any comment on what DMEC projects future costs to be? I mean, is it leveling off? Is it expected to go down, or are we going to have increases in perpetuity? Do you have any information for us on that?
Yes, so they do provide a 5-year forward-looking forecast every time that they provide their budget. So they have provided a 5-year forecast. Now, they have showed that it's leveling off. Now, it's very difficult to say how accurate their forecasts are because they don't buy 100% of DMEC's power requirements ahead of time. So it's really hard to say. There's always maybe 10 to 15% that's purchased at spot market, whatever the actual energy prices are. So if energy prices start to run up, unfortunately, we have a little bit floating. We, as in everybody in DMEC, has a little bit floating, so the price will have to go up. If I had to guess in terms of percentage of how often DMEC was correct in that 5-year forecast, I'd say it's probably plus or minus 3 or 4%, which this is a 3% increase here. So it's really hard to say, but they are showing that it's going to level off over the next 5 years. And then after that this specific 5-year period, the transmission upgrade should be done to where the Indian River plant will no longer need to be subsidized by the Delmarva Power Zone. And so the cost will come down in 5 years for that specific piece. It's just hard to say where the other costs are going to be.
I was just trying to get a feel for whether they've been accurate in the past, and they got a pretty good track record of predicting their costs in the future. My memory is that it's been pretty good. They've been pretty accurate.
Yeah, like I said, between a $2 and $3 range, plus or minus, is essentially where they seem to fall.
Yeah, and historically, you know, it really kind of tracked the price of natural gas, which had been, for a long period of time, a decade or more, pretty stable. And the volatility in that market really has caused them some issues with their forecasting. Mm-hmm. And then this reliability must-run issue really came out of left field for everybody.
Right.
So that was one of those unpredictable things. This is a very volatile time in the electric market right now. Mm-hmm. Across the board, I think that's safe to say, is it not, Mr. Sims?
Oh, absolutely. I've definitely, if I had to guess what the average increase has been in the entire country, it's over 20% in the last 2 years in power supply cost. I mean, I've seen contracts in some of my clients that they were buying power at $36 a megawatt hour, and they have contracts at $78. So it's more than doubled, essentially.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And why is that increase? Is green energy impacting those costs?
No, it's almost like Charles said, it's almost entirely follows oil prices, essentially.
Okay.
So when oil goes to
Okay.
$100 a barrel,
Right.
you know, there's really nothing you can do about it because those renewable resources are all intermittent. And so you need to have something that can supplement them when either the sun's not shining or the
Right.
wind's not blowing. And that fuel is natural gas because there's just an all-out assault on coal. And the dirtier the fuel is, we're just seeing fewer and fewer of those. So it's pretty much natural gas makes the market today.
Okay. All right, any other questions from council? All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman King?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Councilman Santos?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. And next, now we have the fee and rate schedule change.
So we went ahead and updated the fee and rate schedule in anticipation of this change, and you will notice, I believe it's on page 2 of 8 there. I'm sorry. It's page, I must have passed it myself. Yeah, thank you very much. Page 2 of 8. The only change we made there is the purchase power cost adjustment clause, or PCAC, and it's the exact same rate there. You'll see $0.00532 per kilowatt hour. And that would be effective 1/1/2023. So I think I'm going to say this right, December consumption billed in January.
Actually, this would be for the meter readings at the end of January.
End of January.
That's
Okay.
correct. That would, because the first DMAC bill that has that increase will be for January's usage, so it won't be billed to us till February
Thank you.
10th or so.
Thank you for correcting that.
Mhm.
But we have worked with our billing folks and our director of finance. So if council adopts this tonight, we'll publish this.
Correct
and,
it.
Yep, this is the rate, and we'll get it out there, give our customers as much notice as we can.
But we just need to update the date. Was there a date on there?
There is a date, and it would, effective January 1, 2023, which would be correct.
We'll adjust to the end of January.
That's when the billing will actually occur.
Okay, all right. All right, are there any questions in regards to the fee and rate schedule? If not, I'll accept a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll motion to approve the revision to the fee and rate schedule to change the power cost adjustment clause, PCAC, to address the increase in wholesale electric rates as presented.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Councilman King, I'll second the motion.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions on the motion? Now we'll do a roll call vote. Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman King?
Aye.
Councilman Santos?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it so much.
Thank you, Mr. Sims.
All right, next we have our annual financial audit statements, and Mrs. Merritt's going to come up.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
I have with me Bill Seymour. He's with SB and Company, our auditing firm. He has the draft financial report to present to you. And I do want to thank my staff, basically working all year long, and then also the last few months helping get everything ready for the audit. So.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Bill Seymour. I'm the engagement partner with SB and Company, and this represents our required communications under generally accepted auditing standards. I was going to walk through this presentation. Please feel free to stop me with any questions that you may have. Scope of services, we were engaged to perform an audit of the June 30, 22 financial statements of the city, as well as provide assistance in the preparation of those financial statements. The results of the audit is we plan to issue an unmodified, or if you will, clean opinion on the financial statements. That is the best opinion that I am allowed to issue under generally accepted auditing standards. We noted no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal controls under financial reporting. We did not discover, nor were we made aware of any instances of fraud. I would caution that our audit is not a fraud audit. That would be different in scope. However, professional standards and our firm standards require that we look for fraud in what we test, maintain a healthy skepticism for fraud, and through those procedures, we did not discover any. And lastly, we received the full cooperation of management. I want to thank June and her team for getting us all of the information in their busy schedules and allowing us to finish timely. This is just a pictorial of the audit approach. The idea behind this is that we plan the audit to address the areas of material misstatement. We look at how management has designed and operated internal controls to mitigate that risk, and then performance of various analytical procedures, substantive procedures, as well as audit standard required items. The whole process allows us to garner enough audit evidence that we're able to issue that unmodified opinion. And through that, we look at controls at two different levels. The first level that we look at it is at the entity-wide level using the COSO model of internal controls. That is the 5 interrelated components of the underlying environment, the risk assessment, the specific control activities, monitoring, and information and communication. You can see in all cases our assessment was effective. Next, we dive down a little bit deeper, looking at key processes and the underlying functions as they relate to internal controls over financial reporting. And once again, Treasury, the estimation, financial reporting, all were effective. Looking at the expenditure process, payroll, as well as revenue, we had no issues that were discovered. Had we had problems here, we would use terms like needs improvement, significant deficiency, or material weakness. Effectively, kind of in plain English, what we kind of look at from an audit perspective is that if you were to remove the external audit from the process, would management get the financial statements correct based upon their processes, their policies? And from our testing, that answer is yes. So in summary, just looking at the entity-wide statements for the city on a comparative basis for governmental activities as well as business-type activities, there were no real issues that we had going through the audit procedures in any of these amounts that were here during the course of the audit. And if you look, the total net position, kind of, if you will, for private sector, kind of retained earnings or stockholders' equity, if you will, the total net position of the city increased by roughly about $5 million over the course of the year. That was primarily driven by increases in revenue and decreases in expenses that occurred during the course of the year. Additional grants that were received as a result of the pandemic and other grants, and then spending that went along with that. Same item, nothing really of issue from an audit perspective. We were able to get the information to sign off that these numbers are reasonable. This is a graph that just kind of shows the different buckets, if you will, of how the city gets revenue. The majority of it is in taxes. The second largest portion is intergovernmental revenues, and then you can see licenses and fees and the like make up the smaller portions. This slide talks about kind of where does the money go. And if you look at, police is the largest expenditure, and then capital outlay, administration, and then you can see the other ones that make up the smaller percentages of costs. There was one new accounting standard that we adopted this year related to operating leases. This now changed the accounting from operating leases from being a disclosure that was in the notes to the financial statements to now where it's recorded as a liability and intangible asset. That amount was not material to the statements. And then the last part of our presentation goes through our specific required communications. This is our opportunity, our responsibility to chat with you about kind of what's underneath the hood of the audit. We talk about we got to an unmodified opinion, but there could have been lots of journal entries. We could have had accounting policies that were just barely acceptable. We could have had disagreements with management. We really nature that we're required to bring to your attention. As I mentioned earlier, June and her team were able to get us the information we needed timely so that we could sign off accordingly. And I'll stop there and see if there's any questions that I can answer about the audit.
Any questions from council?
Okay. Thank you. Happy holidays.
Okay, same to you. Thank
You
you
as
very
well.
much,
Thank
Mr. Seymour. All right, next we have the Delaware Drinking Water Revolving Fund.
Director Mears will come up.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
Good evening. So we have the EPA's put out a new lead and copper rule revisions that we have to meet by October 16th of 2024. Basically, what we have to do is inventory all our service connections and find out if there's any lead. And if there's any lead, then we have to put a replacement plan in place to replace them. So I am looking to contract with a consultant to help inventory our lines, and then also implement a plan to do this. So it's a 3-year plan, even though that we have to meet we have to meet the deadline of inventorying by that 2024 date. This is a 3-year plan to actually get it implemented to the point of where we're starting to replace actual lines. So we don't technically have lead service lines, but we have what are called lead goosenecks that are from the corporation to the galvanized pipe coming in to the homes. So anything after that lead gooseneck is required to be replaced all the way into the house. So now, as far as our program of replacement, we only have to replace up into the curb stop at the property line. But then there will be some funding through the state that could possibly help the homeowners if they want to replace theirs as well. So what this is a resolution that is required to be a part of the application for a 50% matching planning grant. We've done these quite a few times. So basically, we would pay 50%, and the other 50% would be granted to us. So the total is $63,800 over a 3-year period. $31,900 would be paid by us, and $31,900 would be granted by the state.
Okay, are there any questions for Director Mears?
Yes.
Councilman Henderson.
The way it reads says for fully known service line material information. How are you planning to discover that if it's under a street?
So what I've started to do in talking with the consultant is we got a list of all known service connections. Then we've gone through, and we're going to start to go through and list ones that we know have already been replaced through projects or through us doing service replacements and things like that. And then the rest will be through, how they do it. They don't do every single one, but like if we've been on a street, we've replaced one and we know it's there, then they'll consider that the possibility that the rest of them would be in that area as well. And then also they have lead kits that they'll actually go and they'll test the water with lead kits to see if there's any lead in their water. So it's I don't want to say it's not 100% accuracy, but we're going to do our best to put a list together as comprehensive as it can be.
So what about the copper part of it?
The copper is not being made to be replaced as part of this. This is more of lead driven. It's called lead and copper rule because it's always been the lead and copper rule, but it's only the lead that's really driving this part of replacement.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from council? If not, I'll accept the motion.
All right, Mr. Mayor, Councilman King, I will make a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the preparation and submission of an application to the Delaware Drinking Water State Revolving Fund Program for participation in the matching program planning grant in order to receive funds up to $63,800, $31,900 of local funds, and $31,900 of grant funds. 50% match required to define and execute a plan to comply with the revised lead and copper rule, including developing an inventory categorized by customer address for Seaford with fully knowing service line material information available in 120 water platform and ARC-GIS compatible format via 120 water-ESR1 connector and provide water quality lead and copper sampling services within the city of Seaford as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Councilman Holland, Mr. Mayor, I second that motion.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions on the motion? If not, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilman King?
Aye.
Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
And Councilman Santos?
Aye.
Okay, it's 100%. And then next we have the Delaney Street Well Revolving Fund Program.
Yeah, so this is basically the same thing, but what this is for, and we'll probably rename this project moving forward. So what spawned it was the problem we had at Delaney Well. So then we started looking for alternatives to get our production capacity back up, and we started looking at revitalizing the nylon well. So we've been in conversations with GMB to put a scope together, and we've had some options of what to do there at nylon. And then this is the next step forward where we're going to start getting into the putting an actual preliminary engineering report together and some kind of preliminary plan, costing, things like that. So basically the same thing as said before, but their price is $99,500, and we would split it again, $49,750 paid by us and $49,750 granted by the state.
Okay, are there any questions from council in regards to this project?
Yes.
Councilman Henderson?
Couple questions. So, in the last couple sentences of the item, it says, 1,750 feet of 8-inch raw water transmission main and improvements to the existing nylon well, inclusive of a new well, pump, and controls. Is there a comma in there? Is it a new well, a new pump and controls, or just a new well pump?
We're looking at all options. So one option is to revitalize the well that's there and then pump, and put in some raw water line all the way down to a location down the street where a treatment basically building would be installed, constructed and installed, and then pump it back into the main. The other option is to do away with nylon and actually, where we're talking about putting the treatment facility, actually drilling a new well there as well. So we're going to compare a couple different options, cost them out, and see what's the best.
So the second question is, was it radon? What was the chemical? It was radon?
Radium.
Radium, yeah. So has there been any testing at the nylon well for
No.
radium? So that would be part
Well,
of this investigation?
Yeah, we could do that. We would do that as part of the revitalization of it. We have tested it years ago. We just haven't done any production from that well in years. So it would be part of the process. See if it's a vital well to move forward.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I'll accept the motion.
All right, Mr. Mayor, Councilman King, I'll make a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the preparation and submission of an application to the Delaware Drinking Water State Revolving Fund Program for participation in the matching grant, planning grant in order to receive funds up to $99,500, $49,750 local funds, and $49,750 of grant funds. 50% match required following GMB's evaluation work associated with the city Delaney Street Well and associated radium contamination. The city proposes to place this nylon well back into service in response to the disconnected use of the Delaney Street Well. Before placing the well into service, improvements are necessary to ensure its long-term viability as a water supply. The proposed project will include the construction of a new treatment station at city-owned property, which is along Nylon Boulevard near the intersection with West Popular Street. the installation of approximately 1,750 linear feet of 8-inch raw water transmission main and improvements to the existing nylon well, inclusive of a new well pump and controls. The project will also include planning, preliminary designs, and possible easements acquisitions as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Councilman Holland, Mr. Mayor, I second that motion.
Okay, are there any questions on the motion? If not, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilman King?
Aye.
Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
And Councilman Santos?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. And then, number 7, we're talking about a sanitary force main on Chipley Street.
Yep. So, the two new houses that are being built on Shipley Street, to install the sewer services has turned out to be kind of complicated. So it's across the street from the actual properties, and there's a transite water main over there, which to dig the whole, this is a very deep sewer over there. So to dig a safe excavation hole over there, we'd have a long stretch of transite water main just dangling in the air. It could be supported, properly through construction, but meeting with the contractor over there, the contractor was the one who suggested, if they could put in a little E1 grinder pumps and force main it over, directional drill it across the street. So, we presented that, I presented that idea to Charles, and we talked about the pros and cons, and if they wanted to proceed with this, we just needed a maintenance agreement. So basically, this is a maintenance agreement stating that would go with the property forever, that, that the property owner would be responsible for the pump and force main over to, across the street, Shipley Street, should there be a problem.
And just so council's aware, we hold the franchise for any work in the roadway. So the directors met with DelDOT, they understand this, but we would be the ones in short term that would respond to an emergency.
Right.
And we would have to stabilize the situation. We would then back bill the property owner for that, and that's what this agreement outlines. But ultimately, it's their cost responsibility. We would just be the short-term responder in the event of an emergency.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Just for clarity. So Burley, just two quick questions. One, with that lift station or this sanitary force main, how's that going to be accessed? And then second of all, if this property changes hands, what does that look like? Does the maintenance go along with that, or does it fall back on the city's responsibility?
So the first one is, it's like a can with a little top on it. It's underground, of course, with a little accessible hatch on it. But that would be on the private property side. They're proposing it to be back maybe midway through the property or so. And the second answer is yes, it would transfer, to the next owner. I already spoke to the owner of the property now. He's familiar with them. He's developed land in other areas that have had these, so he's familiar and okay with it. But somehow it would have to be in the deed or some kind of document that transfers with it, yes.
Awesome, thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other questions from council? Councilman Henderson?
I don't think this is for you, Burley, but that's maybe a question for the city manager. I recall that we made concessions to the developer for the cut.
We did.
For the expense. Now he doesn't have the expense at all.
You're correct. You have a good memory. This developer came forward and requested consideration from the Economic Development Committee because crossing Shipley Street, being so deep, being on the other side of the road, and the city council ultimately did award the developer $5,400 of
Somewhere in that
reduction in
range,
fees per building permit. The Director of Economic Development, Director of Public Works, and myself discussed this with the developer, and what we understand in talking with the developer, this price, because of changes in cost, this price came in similarly to some of the estimates he had to put in at Gravity Main. Did I say that correctly, Mr. Mears?
Yep, so that's That is what he told me when I called him, was that the price of this was very similar, if not a little bit more, than what he proposed to the Economic Development Committee.
because of the equipment.
Yeah, because of the
And then-
technology and just
and
the economy
The
and
directional drilling.
directional drilling.
So the other question is, which, I mean, I recall historically that section of sewer has been problematic. Don't you have to go and do jetting on a frequent basis to keep that open?
It's on our quarterly.
Because it's
sewer.
not pitched quite right. Is that going to do, having a force main on that, will that have any effect?
So what we're proposing to do, that's a very deep main in that area. What we're proposing to do is like 4 to 5 feet down. We haven't decided exactly where yet, but he's gonna run a short little piece of gravity main, and then he's gonna dump into that, a lot shallower. So then that will then dump into the
So
deep
it's a
one.
diffuser that'll.
Yeah, like a diffuser pipe, and then it'll dump down in it. And I could do it either way. I'll accept it either way. This is what they proposed for our approval, and if this is the way they want to go, as long as they accept the maintenance of it, I'm okay with it.
We just need to make sure that's really clear in their documentation so that that doesn't fall back on us when this passes owners 2 or 3 times and all
Yeah,
of a
what
sudden we
we'll-
got a backup problem.
I'm sorry, sir. What we'll do is, once we sign this, we'll ask our building official to record this, so it's recorded with the property. So anybody that buys this property, it'll be part of the closing documents. That, that's the best we can do.
They won't understand it, but
They will not understand it, but we'll at least have something that we can fall back to say, here's the issue.
Okay. All right, if there are no further questions, I'll accept the motion.
All right, Mr. Mayor, Councilman King, I'll make a motion to approve the agreement for the installation of a sanitary force main to serve 519 Shipley Street as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Councilman Holland, Mr. Mayor, I second that motion.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, okay, it's unanimous. And the next item is the same thing at the
Same
house
exact
next
thing,
door.
yeah, house next door.
If there are no further questions, I'll accept the motion.
All right, Mr. Mayor, Councilman King, I believe for the last time, make a motion to approve the agreement for the installation of a sanitary force main to service 521 Shipley Street as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Councilman Santos, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
That's right.
Okay, it's unanimous. I didn't know where you were going, but I
No,
thought,
maybe not.
okay.
That's right.
All right, under old business, we have the front-end loader bids.
Yep. So I mentioned in the last meeting that we did receive 3 bids for the front-end loader. I was in process of reviewing them, so I wasn't ready to make a recommendation, but now I have reviewed them, and I made a recommendation to not accept any of them. One, of course, was a no bid. The second was well over our budget. And the third one, who was the low bid, did not meet the specifications. So I'm going to look to rebid it
So we
in
do need
January.
a motion to not, okay. So if there's no questions for Director Mears, I'll accept your final motion for the year 2022.
All right,
Did I throw you off?
no,
Okay.
no, I was apologizing because I misspoke on the last motion. Councilman King, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to accept the recommendation of the Director of Public Works and reject all bids for the front-end loader as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Councilman Santos, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, okay, it's unanimous. Thank you, Director Mears. All right, reminder of meetings.
So we just have a few city offices and utility divisions will be closed for the Christmas holiday, Friday, December 23rd, and Monday, December 26th. City offices and utility divisions will also be closed for the New Year holiday, Monday, January 2nd, 2023. And just our reminder, the leaf machine is currently in operation, but it will end on December 31st. That's all I have, sir.
Okay, before we go into committee reports, and you have an election coming up, but
apologize,
before we go into the election report, I do want to say, we thanked everybody, but I failed to thank all of you sitting at this table for your support on the Nylon Capital Shopping Center project. Without your votes, we could not have moved that forward, and I thank you for staying a dozen, 2 dozen executive session nights, however many it was for a year, that we went through that and put in a lot of time and effort. Your votes made today happen, and I greatly appreciate it. So with that, we'll announce the upcoming election.
Yes, thank you
In
very
April.
much. Yeah, there is a municipal election Saturday, April 15th, 2023. We put this on the agenda this time every year. There are 2 council members that will be elected for a 3-year term, and we had Councilman Santos, who filed yesterday for re-election. That's the first one. That's all I have, sir.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. We'll go to committee reports, administration, IT, Councilman Santos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The following meetings and other works were attended by city staff. They made several inspections and responded to requests for information from GGI Builders and GMB for the renovations of 106 Spring Street. They attended the Salisbury-Wicomico Metropolitan Planning Organization meeting. They attended the DMEC board meeting, the DMEC Finance Committee meeting, the SCAT breakfast meeting in Georgetown, and for the IT report, they finished cabling and began configuration of firewall and switches, worked with Mid-South Audio to relocate audio recording equipment. They moved furniture in council chambers and configured new workstation. And for the administration report and finance, they've been working, they corresponded with auditors to finalize field work and prepare financial reports, and all other business is routine.
Okay, thank you very much. One more thank you. I'm a little out of it. It's been a long day. When we have events like this, it takes a ton of work to get ready for it when the governor announced he's coming, and most of that falls on Mrs. Newcomer, and she pulls everybody together, makes it happen, and when we all show up, it all seems like magically it just happens. But someone's worked very, very hard and had a ton of communications. Those communications don't happen typically 8 to 5. They go into the night, they go into the weekend, because things have to be done. And I want to say personal thank you to her, because she makes us look as best we can and made a great event today. So thank you for your great work. So, all right. Yeah. All right, police and fire, Councilman Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Got a report from Fire Chief John Wilson. There's a total of 953 calls for the year from the fire department, or from the fire service, and that's an average of 2.7 calls per day. So far in December, this was done yesterday or maybe even late Sunday, but there are 32 calls to date for an average of 2.6. So there's probably a couple more calls in there. EMS, there's a total of 3,997 calls for the year for an average of 11.5 calls. And likewise, the December 2022 calls are to date are 136 calls for an average of 11.3 calls per day. So that's the total department responses are 4,950 calls for an average running out of the fire department of 14.3 calls per day. You'll see some other statistics here. In city calls, the total for the year is 2,874. Out of city calls are 1,680, and the assists are 227 for the total of the department. There's other statistics here as we get close to the year end. You'll see the number of hours served, and I'll just give the totals for the year. That's 3,275.9 hours in service. Personnel in service is 15,023.2 hours. Would you consider those man hours?
The hours in service?
Yes. That would be 15,023.2 man hours in service personnel. So total personnel hours, 9,523.6, and miles traveled is 35,676.5. Mr. City Manager, there was some discussion that maybe we could get gallons of fuel used, that data given to the chief so that we could report the amount of fuel used by the department, just to give the council an idea how much fuel they run through.
Yeah, I think we have that right through our fuel card.
Yes.
Yep, okay. I'll see if we can get that to you, Chief.
Number of significant events listed. Some of these are repeats, so we'll go from 11/22. There was a garage fire out of the city. There was a couple of assists. There was unfortunately a fatal accident on December 5th out of the city on Wesley Church Road and Cannon Road. There was another fatality where a pedestrian was struck on December 8th. There were several other assists out of the city during that time. Tower 87 is still out of service. All of the estimates haven't come in, but we're compiling expenses and reports for the insurance company to assess whether it will be repaired or what the long-term prognosis is for the piece of equipment. The last training was on November 23rd. It was training on rope, knots, and equipment systems. 15 members were present. The next training, and I should mention that this, the after-action review, which was scheduled for November 23rd, has been postponed to Wednesday, December 21st at the fire station. Under emergency medical services, all 3 ambulances are in service. Firefighter EMT Thomas Jefferson III passed his paramedic test for nationals this week. Career anniversaries. We had EMT Vicky Mast celebrated 14 years, Lieutenant Robin Andino 5 years of service, and firefighter and EMT Thomas Jefferson III again is 4 years of service. And Lieutenant Micah Eddy, 1-year anniversary. So if you encounter them, please congratulate them for their anniversaries. Lots of news, lots of things going on. The Seaford apparatus has been displayed on many parades throughout the county, throughout the area, and even in Federalsburg, so outside. They're being fine ambassadors for Seaford in that respect. On December 16th, the Santa through the city on the fire truck, the planned route will be posted to the community tomorrow on the fire department's Facebook page. So tune in to the fire department's Facebook page to figure out approximate time and where they're going to be winding through the city. I'm sorry? Yeah, okay, so
I normally
This
find out
just
about
in.
the neighbors call and say, what's going on? There's a terrible fire. I just keep hearing the fire truck. They can't find it.
so the fire chief has just said that it was posted today on the Facebook page. So we had, at the last meeting, we did have we did announce that there were some winners, and would like to announce the second place winner for the fire prevention poster and essay contest, second place was Gabe Forston, the second grade at West Seaford Elementary. And second place also for Alexis Saunders, fourth grade, from Frederick Douglass Elementary. So we'll move on to the Police Department report by Chief Marshal Kraft. You'll see the totals, the 5-year column. Year-to-date columns for 2022 is 9,067, which is trending, total complaints is trending a little lower than 2021. However, there are several categories that will exceed or have already exceeded 2021 levels, which is a concern, and there will be some targeting and some enforcement to try to combat that. Under criminal, there were 270 in all crimes, and you'll see the distribution of felony, misdemeanors, violations, civil, and other, with an 80% clearance rate. Under drug complaints, there were 30 drug complaints, 23 adult arrests, and 7 prosecutions declined. There were 3 overdoses in this period that were responded to by the police department. I want to caution you that some overdoses are responded to by EMS, and they're not always, the police department doesn't always encounter these folks. So it's, I think it's fair to say that there were more than 3. If you look at the EMS responses on Pulse Point or some other information system, but there were 3. One at the Wawa, one at Meadow Bridge Apartments, and one on the 100 block of Northeast Front Street. Under traffic, there were 139 citations and 6 warnings, 7 DUIs. And those numbers are climbing, and it's of concern because it's definitely a public safety issue. There were 53 crashes in this period, none fatal. There were 5 injury accidents, 1 fatal pedestrian accident, and 26 non-reportable accidents. 8 hit and runs, which is still exceedingly high for and getting higher if you compare them to previous periods. And a lot of them were in neighborhoods. Pondview, Front Street, the American Legion, Bel Air, Vandercook Memorial Hospital parking lot. So there's, you know, a lot of these were happening on private property, however, or in neighborhoods. So there are some on Stein Highway, but you know, people are just not paying attention, and they're not owning up to their issues either. So there were 2 pedestrian actions, including the one that was fatal. There was another one of 2 non-fatal pedestrian accidents, which one was at Uncle Willie's parking lot on Stein Highway, and one on Norman Espridge and North Street. I'm sorry, that includes the 1 fatal. So 1 DUI related crash. Under significant events, quite a few events here. It's not an all-inclusive list, but it is some of the most significant events. I will, on the top one, I will highlight this one. There was an attempted murder and I'll give you an update on that. On November 29th, Raheem Frisbee was taken into custody on active Seaford Police Department attempted murder warrants by Delaware State Police SORT team. After a short vehicle pursuit, Frisbee was committed to SCI on a $522,000 cash bond. So the gentleman's been apprehended from his attempted murder activity. So moving down to administration, the chief, they've recently procured some police officer scheduling software, and the deputy chief was sent to training on that. And that will standardize and make vacation and time management and payroll management a little bit easier for the and scheduling for the officers. It's a management tool. And under training, they completed all Seaford Police Department members have completed their TASER training, and they recently did a departmental vehicle pursuit training with policy and date driving simulator training at the police department. So they got schooled on pursuit training and the policy there. That concludes my report. I'd like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and safe holiday.
Amen. Before we go into our next committee report, I thought of another person need to. Our city manager really does a lot of work without making it look like he's that it's a fuss for him to do it. But to take on this project has been a lot of work on him. And unfortunately or fortunately, his workload is going to increase going into next year, which is a great thing. But we're going to need him to have his fingers on this to help it move forward. But I want to thank him for his efforts, not only for what he does, but he supported us and our desire to do what happened. And without him in his role, we can't get done what we need to. So thank you. Mr. Anderson. Councilman Holland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right, before I start, would you like to, anybody else?
If we're going to play that way, I'd like to thank Councilman Holland for being here tonight.
That got me.
We'll start with Cade.
That got me.
Okay, rental inspections being scheduled for 2023. Plumber and trash hauler license and renewals being processed. Melanie Ridge, first two buildings have been completed. Muirfield 2, 4 unit townhouses have been completed, and East Park Business Center, building number 3, has been completed, and all the work is routine. Now I will switch to Park and Recs. Bobby completed 6th class out of 10 at Rutgers for the Public Grounds Management Program. Ashton Trevis began as a part-time parks employee on 12/7, and they completed sorting teams for the youth basketball with over 160 participants. And they had begun the first week of practice for youth basketball on 12/5. And they had begun reviewing and revising landscape contracts for 2023. And they have received notification for Sackland Infrastructure Grant for $21,500 and ORPT grant for $54,000. And that concludes my report, and all the work is routine, and happy holidays to all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman McCoy, Electric.
Oh, boy. Councilman Holland's got me cracking up over here. Since the last report regarding our crew, they started working on Venture Drive at the MS property location. Set the pole, framed it up, and pulled the overhead primary wire to it. Set the timers on all the Christmas lights and displays, and Tyler Sewell took week 4 of lineman training. Regarding our director, he had his standard council liaison meeting. He helped with the tree lighting in Gateway Park. and took a vacation for a week. And over the course of upcoming weeks, Dalton Hignut will take his first week of lineman training at DMAC. They will continue working in Bel Air multifamily and continue changing the lights on Sussex Highway to LED. Off the list, I also want to talk about the Nylon Shopping Center this afternoon. What struck me a lot about it was that we had so many people from the community there, and I looked around, I saw a superintendent from our local school district and local pastors and leaders, Unified Seaford, and fire chiefs and police chiefs, and my initial takeaway was that this is what community is all about. All these people come together supporting such an amazing event. And I know you've given a lot of thank yous out, but we need to thank you too. You worked really, really hard on this, and you put a lot of time and effort into this, and we know how much you've worked onto it, and I have no doubt that it would not have gotten done without you. So thank you so much for what you've done throughout this entire time. And I'm going to echo your sentiments about the city leadership of our city manager, Charles Anderson, Trish Newcomer, all of our department heads. These things don't get done without amazing leadership, all geared towards the same goal, and that's improving our city. And today was a huge leap forward in doing that. The city council should also be applauded by taking a risk and being gutsy and taking this opportunity, because my opinion is it's going to change our city for the good for a really long time. So really great day to be a part of Seaford. I also want to wish everybody happy holidays, happy New Year, because it won't be back till next year, and a very safe and Merry Christmas. And that's been my report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for all you do.
Councilman King, wrap us up in a good way.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report has been submitted in its entirety. I'm just going to hit some of the highlights. I'll start with the Public Works Department. The team has increased their attention on street cleaning for the holiday season. A meeting was held with a contractor about the fire hydrant installation on 3rd Street. The team has started pulling the speed bumps. Maintenance was performed on the pump at the Pine Street lift station. The leaf machine is out in full swing, for a few more days, right, Charles? At the end of the month, it comes to an end. And they did the maintenance on the snowplow, getting it geared up. Jump over to the wastewater treatment facility. All is operating well. Plant performance remains good. Just a couple projects that are happening over the next few weeks. There's a hydrant replacement at the front of 206 Shipley Street. Finish up the pump installation at the Industrial Park lift station. Repair cleanouts on the smoke testing list, and keep the plant up and running with 0 violations. And then, not to be redundant, today is an incredible day for our city. Very, very exciting. I can tell you, living on that side of town, I can't wait for that to start. And just, also too, we got the Christmas judge lighting is coming to a conclusion, coming to an end. I just ride through our community at night, even with the cost of power continuing to go up. I mean, the neighborhoods it's beautiful. I mean, a lot of people put a lot of effort and time into it, and you can see it. See it throughout our entire community. So big thanks for the people in our community that continue to do that year after year. And then, once again, just Merry Christmas to everyone. Thanks for what everyone does, and I'll see you next year.
Yeah, so we'll wrap this up. This is our last meeting of the year. Our next meeting is January 10th. We're going to need that break because we're going to hit the ground running with the shopping center hitting pretty hard. Did I get cut off? What? That's a wrap for the year. Everybody's a comedian. But just on your radar, we'll have KRM coming through in February for their final site plan of their building, with construction starting in the spring. I'm guessing we'll probably see more development at the residents of River Place next year. There's just a lot of good things happening. We have just been a witness of a tremendous blessing, God's hand on us on this, what happened today. There's no doubt in my mind that we had some divine help on that, and we greatly appreciate God's favor, and I pray each and every one of you enjoy your Christmas holiday. It's the one birthday that is celebrated for a month long, so people are lighting up and ready to go. So enjoy this wonderful season. We will do our final judging on Tuesday, the 20th. If you care to do the final judge, I know it's hard to pick the winner, but it's our job. So it's our final job for the year. So if you can do that, we'll meet up here at 6 o'clock and do that final judging on Tuesday, the 20th. And with that, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion from Councilman McCoy, second.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Henderson. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you. Good night. Thank you.